I just wanted to ask a couple questions about especially the piece that you are going to play tomorrow, and then you compose here in Asiago.
Yes.
So, first of all, I had to write and translate your description of the piece as well, so I know a little bit about
So you
the
know everything
ideas.
about it.
I know the story between, behind the score and the piece, of course, and its composition. But I want to know more about the musical side of the composition.
Yeah.
So, for example, you speak about the chrysler in your description, of course, as a symbol of this city. I wanted to know the city and, of course, of this wool zone and this wool culture. I wanted to know how did you manage to discover this specific tune, and is it difficult to utilize it in music? How do you have to work on it a little bit before, because it's not like standard tune? And what can you say to us about it?
So it all started last year when my parents and I were all composers in residence in Asiago, and we all wrote, my parents each wrote a piece using some kind of theme of Asiago, and my father chose the chrysler, the Ostertag, because Roberto sent a selection of Cimbri folk tunes, and then he sent a recording of a sort of, I think it was a male choir singing this particular Ostertag, and my father really thought that this was special, so he decided to use this. And he just wrote for one voice, for cello and piano, and I played it. And we performed it in San Rocco, and somehow it was a very special moment, and I really enjoyed playing it, and I felt that for the audience, they could really relate to this, and they were like humming along. And then when I was here last November to also find more inspiration for the composition, again, Roberto gave me a big selection of Cimbri songs, and I played through all of them. And there were some very nice ones. Actually, I was surprised to find that Stille Nacht was actually a Cimbri song as well. I mean, it must have been a Bavarian song. And that was very nice. But my heart was still remembering Chrysler and Ostertag. And somehow this tune, it gives you so many possibilities of what you can do with it, of the harmonies. When my father used it, he created some kind of dissonant harmonies, something very unusual, very from another world. And for me, I felt like I wanted it to be much more diatonic and really to bring the original harmony of the tune, and this was really perfect in the whole theme of my concerto, because the beginning of the concerto is how Asiago was originally, this kind of total paradise in the plains of the mountains, self-contained, everything so peaceful and beautiful, and everything just like an endless kind of feeling of time. Then suddenly this breakout of the war, which came completely from nowhere, and everything completely destroyed. And then we needed the theme of the new life, the revival, the coming back and coming out of the disaster, but also then bringing back the past, but somehow with a new hope and a new strength after having experienced everything in the destruction. And so the Ostertag Chrysler is perfect for this, as for the Easter, for the Christ arising, and this new world and hope for everyone.
You spoke about the destruction, the war. Did you took some particular inspiration about it? I mean, a lot of composers wrote music about war, about destruction, about the First World War and the Second one.
Yeah.
Did you took some inspiration from Russian music or something like that, or you try to discover a new way to describe this horror?
Well, the idea was, which was a great idea, I loved it. It was to come here for 10 days in November, to stay in Hotel Paradiso, which is very appropriate, and to really feel the essence of the place and the people, how they are, and how, you know, what they went through. And so I was lucky enough to meet some nice local people here who showed me, for example, the Museum of the War, which is, what is it called, the place?
Maybe in Canove.
In Canove.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I saw lots of documents there. Then also another museum where I went last summer of the war, and
At the prison, maybe.
and the prison, and also the monument. And so I tried in November to be completely free to this, the nature of everything, of the actual, the truth of everything, not just some kind of idea, oh, let's write a wall or let's write a paradise, but something which is really part of this place. And then if you let the nature rule your music, it somehow, I think it's much more personal, and it makes the music more personal. And somehow, even in the war, there is still something positive. And I don't know why this is. It just happened this way. Some of the chords which are, they're actually maggiore, but within the maggiore, there's a lot of pain. So it's like a kind of triumph through pain, and this just happened instinctively. And in fact, actually, somehow it can be even more pain. You know, the maggiore can be even more painful than the minore. This very, very kind of intense feeling. So, I mean, in terms of the wars of great composers, I think the best person that did it well was Richard Strauss in his Ein Heldenleben, and also in Alten Sinfonie. There's, I mean, the big storm.
Yes.
But so I always look, when I look for inspiration in my music, I'm much more drawn to Mahler and to Strauss.
Okay, so end of the last century, 2 centuries ago, actually.
Than to Russian composers somehow. I don't know.
Oh.
I just my heart is with
the other part.
with the Germanic,
yes.
romantic. Yeah.
Well, speaking about Germanic composer, the form of this concerto is a triple concerto, and you have the score of the Beethoven triple concerto there, yes, which is the most important triple concerto in the history of music, and I think there are like 3 or 2 more concerts and nothing more written for this particular instrumentation.
Yes.
So
not many.
why?
Now,
what's the problem about it?
The interesting thing is, I didn't know why until I started writing it myself.
That's what I want to know.
Because when I started writing it myself, I have to say frankly, I was very scared, because it is simply the hardest thing a composer could ever do, I believe.
To have 3 soloists.
Because you have to really think about the 3 soloists already, to balance them. For example, people say in the Beethoven, a lot of people say that the cello part is by far the hardest part, and the rest are just kind of like, playing something at the back. And it's very difficult to get an evenness, but you have to try to find an evenness, because you have 3 soloists, and so you have to try to give each soloist their place for them. Not that, oh, he's there, but actually he could not be there. You know, it has to be really, every piece of the puzzle has to really have its own place, and then you have a whole orchestra.
Yes.
You know, which is also great because you can have so many colors of the orchestra and the percussion. And actually, I was lucky to have more percussion than Beethoven had in his time. He just used the timpani. We are using 2 extra percussionists for this piece, and also an extra piccolo, because in the Beethoven just 1 flute, and here we have flute and piccolo. And then this already creates this sonore, all the amazing amount of possibilities of color. And actually for me, the color is really the most important thing that I somehow try to hear in my head when I write. And with this piece and with being here, and I saw, when I was here in November, in the 10 days that I was here, I probably saw all the seasons of the weather in those 10 days. You know, we had beautiful, really hot, sunny days. Then we had the snow and everything was covered in white, and then the sun came out and you had this glistening of the snow. And then we had the storms, and so it was, I tried to really capture the whole spectrum of Asiago weather.
Yes.
And then yes, and so I found it incredibly challenging to have the 3 instruments and then try to balance it with the rest of the orchestra, so that also the orchestra has their own voice also.
And so why did you decide to write a triple concerto?
Well, it was actually the idea of Roberto.
Oh, that's
and it was a great idea because, for example, the Beethoven triple is one of I love this piece of music, and I'm so happy to be able to play it for the first time as well. I love it so much. So actually, and I love Beethoven, so I've always found some kind of closeness to Beethoven. And the sonata structure, the way that he structures the form, I always write in sonata form, by the way. So even my concerto is in sonata form, but in a tri.
The first movement.
In a tripart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the whole.
The
like
whole
one,
concert, yes.
Yeah. So actually, in a way, sometimes the best ideas are the ones that create the biggest challenges, you know, because then the harder something is, the more you work, and the more impossible the task is. Then when you really, really kill yourself until the moment when you produce the piece of music, but then you've done it, and then you've jumped that hurdle, then you feel like you've done something worthy.
So you're really satisfied with your work this time?
Yes, eventually. I mean, it took me a really long time. It took me much longer than anything else. And I was a bit late. And I now have to, I was meant to write a string quartet by now, but I had to delay my string quartet because of this. But I'm so happy that I had this project, because for me it really feels like a big step in my compositional output.
And now that you had the possibility to have it rehearsed, do you want to change something maybe in the instrumentation, or you think it's really what you wanted it to be? Hearing it live for the first time.
Actually, it's really what I wanted it to be, because there are many composers that they write something and then they think, oh no, I could change this and I could change that and I could change this. I'm not like that at all. So I take longer to really absorb and think and hear in my head what I want. And I will not write anything until I've really found exactly what I want. And then once I found it, then it should hopefully work, you know.
Okay.
But of course there's always some little things, you know, like articulation. We added some accents for the strings to make it more powerful. Some tenuti for the wind instruments. You always find things to work on, but then you always, even in classical music, you can always change things.
Well, I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
One last question. Could you imagine that you were going to create all of that before you were going to Asiago, before seeing the city, seeing the zone? Could you imagine that it was this beautiful?
No, absolutely never. I would not have imagined. This music would never have come to me if I wasn't here. And I have to say that, so when I was here in November, from Paradiso, I went on a walk to the Arco? How do I say? The Monumento. The Monumento.
So l'ossario, you say ossario, the name is ossario. But it's a
Ossario.
big,
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, so I went from my Paradiso to Osario, and there's some beautiful walks, and I was just walking along and looking at the beauty, and then there were the birds singing.
Could you imagine before coming to Asiago that it was this beautiful and all this music would come to you, and how much of the people of Asiago actually came in the final score?
No, definitely I would never have imagined this music before I came to Asiago, and everything that's in my concerto is completely from here. For example, when I was staying in my Paradiso hotel, I've forgotten the name of the monument again.
Ossario.
Osario. So from the Paradiso hotel, I would go on my first walk that I took in order to get inspired by the nature was to the Osario, and there's some very nice paths around. And I was just walking there and looking at the beautiful nature, the birds singing, and I heard this music. I mean, it was just there in the air, and I would never have heard it if I was not exactly in a specific place. And then it was very romantic. I would go to my hotel room where I had a piano, and so I would, after these walks, come and write down and check if I'm hearing the right thing, and write down exactly what I heard. And from this material, I then based the entire composition. But for me, the biggest moment in the composition is from another walk which I took to the neighboring villages. I believe one is called San Domenico, and then Il Bosco. And I was sitting on a bench in Il Bosco, and it was a Sunday, and it was such a sunny day, but it was this snow which was glistening from the sunshine. And I sat, and suddenly I heard from all of the surrounding comune, the Asiago, the church bells coming from different ends, different distances, different rhythms. And then they created this sonority in the air. And this way I imagined, actually, I used this like a time machine to go back to the time of the original Asiago and imagine that they would hear exactly this sound in that time. So I decided I really wanted to put this into my piece, and so actually the piece begins with these bells. And then after the war and after the destruction, suddenly the bells come back. After there's a cadenza with the three soloists, and they are like trying to come back from return to life. And then the bells come back, and then this is a way to sort of structure the piece, to have the connection between the past time and then the present.
And what about the people then, about the people you met here in Asiago?
Well, I definitely noticed in general from them a very particular type of strength of character, and this is, I think, very much from everything that they went through, from the big loss after having a real paradise and then having a complete tragedy for everybody. Everything was so destroyed, and so much suffering and so much loss. But you know, they always say that in life, it's the people that go through the biggest suffering, but the ones that can be strong enough to live through it, and then to take back what, you know, recreate what was before, and then still have hope and still have the positivity, then it really forms you as a person, and it really, really makes you a very strong person. And when I used the Ostertag Chrysler song, this song can be used in so many ways, because it can be very singing and peaceful, like at the beginning of the third movement. The horns play Chrysler, but very sort of plain and calm. But then I used it in order to try to show the real persona of the people of Asiago in the coda. So then suddenly we have this unification of everybody, and everybody sings together this song, just like probably they, you know, when they get together in church on a Sunday and all sing together and feel this. I think there's a very big sense of community here. And suddenly this song actually becomes quite proud in a very positive sense. Proud of having stayed strong and having relived everything that happened. And so it becomes very big, it becomes very triunfante, and the piece concludes with this, to show that, you know, no matter what happened, no matter how terrible things were, they have lived through, and this is not only the musicians are very good, but they are so keen to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that this is something that I lack a lot in the music world, in the orchestral world, even of the biggest orchestras who are...
So people who really want to work on the piece and to understand it.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many orchestras who get very big fees and, you know, very good conditions, and they just don't want to work. They want to sight read, they want to come to the rehearsal and get things done quickly. If the conductor speaks, they get annoyed, they're like, oh, just get on with it, we want to go home to our families, and, you know, which is kind of understandable, but in the end, I think it's really important to put music first. Music has to come first if you want to create something good and something worthy. And what is really great here is that this is exactly the conditions you're working with. People are here, they don't care about the time, they don't care if the rehearsal is later and later and later, and then if the percussionists have their own sectional rehearsal because they want to get everything so perfect. They are so willing to listen to everything that the soloists have to say or that Sergio has to say, and the attitude is just incredible. So you can really, on this level, you can really create so much. You can try so many different things. You can really achieve something, you know. So it's, for me, it's unbelievable. Yesterday, you know, came to the rehearsal. They played for the first time the Asiago Concerto, and at the beginning it was like a bit not sure. Nobody really knew where they were because it's the first time they heard it, and it's quite the meter at the beginning 7/8, and so it's like, oh, when do I play? But then very, very quickly they just grasped it, adapted, and the improvement level is like always so big here, like so quick and so much. And the Beethoven, they play so well, and it's a wonderful string sound, and in general the whole sound is really, really nice. So I'm really, it's been 2 very, very happy days and very hard-working days, but you know, we care, and that's just so great and so rare.
Oh, well, that's really nice. Okay, so this was a little bit of extra
Yeah,
after
the bonus,
after the real
bonus is
interview.
always the best bit.